In business negotiations, about 75% of it, all preparation. And in a minute, we'll be introducing you to a huge preparation guy. Analytics, decision-based, fierce negotiator. Baseball is back, and what better way to celebrate than talking business with MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred. You're entering an enterprise zone at the NASDAQ. Hello everyone, this is Jabari Young, senior writer at Forbes, and I am here at the NASDAQ joined by MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me. It's been a long time. Baseball is back. The 2025 season is actually underway, right? But spring training, not spring training, actually the season opener kicks off this week. Thank you so much, man. It's been a while. Why have you not been coming up here?
It's been a while. I don't know. Maybe you weren't interested? I don't know.
No, of course I was. Of course. I know you're busy, though, right? And fresh off of Tokyo. But, and listen, again, baseball is back. And before we get into that, we are at the NASDAQ, right? Give me a stock, right? Something that's worked well for you, something that maybe you've been interested in buying or already have in your portfolio.
Well, you know, that's an interesting thing. You know, I have a investment manager, and I swear to you, I do not pick, do not look.
Really?
No, I really don't. It's just, you know, I'm sort of a believer in people who are professionals and they're focused on one thing are always going to be better than you are. I mean, I look at the overall results. I don't pay a lot of attention to the individual names. Yeah. I did have NVIDIA. That was pretty
NVIDIA. There we go. Now we're getting to it. NVIDIA. I mean, listen, their stock has been up and you can get in right now. I've been looking at it myself. It's a little bit too high for me, Commissioner, but I know you can afford it. But NVIDIA is not bad either. And listen, as we talk, right, we are still in Women's History Month, right? Give me that woman who's maybe stood out in the business world for you, someone who's been impactful.
You know, someone that I only have seen speak actually at the Allen & Company conference, but I found her to be really impressive, was Sheryl Sandberg. Really, you know, well-spoken, smart, balanced, impressive.
Yeah, nice. And April's right around the corner too. Again, springtime, Financial Literacy Month was the biggest piece of money management advice that you may have had in your life.
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice I got was one of my former bosses said to me, the first $1 million you save, you should always keep in cash. Just always keep that first $1 million in cash.
Why?
And I think it's a downside protection mentality. You know, you always got $1 million there, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. Do you keep it under your bed or something?
No,
like you're not in the bank?
No, I keep it in the bank.
Okay. Because it could lose money in the bank too, right?
Yeah, well, liquid.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, listen, again, man, opening day is here. Is there a Rob Manfred tradition for opening day? Like, do you sit back, crack a beer, like do something like maybe later on in that night after the teams have done their one game and the feeling is there? What's your tradition?
Well, I always try to go to a ballpark live. You know, I think it's important. It's just a symbolic thing to be in a ballpark live. And then I do try to sit down at night and sort of go through the openers and see what happened the various places. You know, there's so much talk throughout the the off season that, you know, it's kind of exciting to see who's actually there and who's doing what, at least in the first game.
Yeah, man. I mean, I tell you, listen, I can't lie to you, and I'm ashamed to say this. I was trying to figure it out if I was going to tell you or not. Last year, I missed a game. I did not get to an MLB ballpark, and I know, I feel like I'm ready to jump off of a building. I was telling my friends, I said, yo, man, no matter what, we have to go. My life got so full, and my daughter's getting older, but I cannot miss a game.
Your daughter getting older is the best possible reason to be going to the ballpark.
It is, but you know what happens, right? See, the Yankees spoiled me, and they gave me that ticket to the Legend Suite, and now she doesn't want to go unless it's there. And so, you know, I can't always get in there. So, you know.
Well, you know, you got friends.
Yeah, I do. That's what I think. You guys heard it. I got some friends. I mean, listen, you guys are coming back from Tokyo, and we were just off camera talking about, you know, where that place is headed, you know, that particular country. And, you know, the Tokyo series that you had, the Dodgers and Cubs, which officially opened the MLB season, and highest rating viewership, right? And over that way, merch was off the hook. Attendance, 25 million watched the Dodgers-Cubs game 1. Great momentum heading into the season.
You know, it's interesting. One of the impressions that I was left with, having been in Japan, met with the Japanese commissioner's office, the Korean commissioner's office, and baseball, small letter B, has amazing momentum right now. The Korean Professional League set an attendance record last year. The Japanese Professional League set an attendance record last year, 56 million people. We drew over 72 million just in the major leagues, not counting minor league baseball, last year. And the game really is on an upswing. Youth participation way up. And so we feel like we have tremendous momentum going into the season.
Yeah, I mean, I see it. I mean, coming off of Shohei Ohtani, I mean, I don't know if you've seen anything different from the reaction. It was a homecoming for him. But, I mean, over in the U.S., you know, the guy's a star. Over there, I'm sure he's a superstar. Did you see anything different, or was it the same old same?
No, it was not the same old, same old. I mean, it is so pervasive. You know, we went down one morning into the store in the Tokyo Dome, went just shortly after it opened. If it had a 17 or Ohtani on it, you could not get near it.
Wow.
His picture is everywhere when you drive around Tokyo. It's just, you know, it is beyond superstardom. It's something, I'm not sure what the next level is, but it is at that level.
Yeah. Well, while we're over there, right, let's look at the international business of baseball fast, right, before heading back to the U.S., because as I look at the landscape, you have obviously the NBA. They're concentrating on places like Africa, China, and other countries. NFL, they're looking over obviously in Europe. And here's baseball. You guys are concentrating on that Asian market. You have Japan, Taiwan. What is going on with the international side? And will we ever see MLB in Africa coming out? What are you guys looking at?
I put it in 3 buckets, okay? Asia, you know, Japan, Taiwan, Korea, you know, developed professional leagues, which kind of gives you a bedrock to work from. Tremendous economic opportunity because they're developed economies. Real culture of baseball in all 3 countries. We had a WBC qualifier in Taiwan earlier this month. We sold 35,000 seats for each of 3 games. And, you know, it was countries that are not really baseball powerhouses. I mean, that's the level of interest there is in the game. So that's kind of pocket 1, developed. Mexico, I put in a second category. We see it, again, established baseball culture. We think there's an opportunity for us to get more players from Mexico, and we're working hard at that because we think it would help our domestic product as well as drive interest in Mexico. And there's a genuine broadcast opportunity in Mexico for us. And then the third bucket is kind of the developing countries. We're spending a lot of time on India right now. We have
a billion people down there.
Yeah, a lot of people. And, you know, the cricket, bat ball, carryover is sort of interesting. You know, there was a young man who was actually born in India, was selected in the first round by Toronto a couple of years ago, and we think that could be something that will really drive the development of baseball in India if he turns out to be a really good player.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one star we've seen with the NBA with, you know, Yao Ming can turn things around for you big time. Now bringing it back to the U.S. One of the things that is in the news for you guys is that ESPN media deal, right? I mean, you guys both, you know, opted out. It's strange that Sunday Night Baseball or ESPN won't be around and the home run day. Like, it feels weird. But again, out with the old, in with the new, maybe. Well, what's the latest there, and how are you guys going to manage these properties moving forward?
Well, look, I mean, you know, we see the sort of end of that relationship as an unfortunate development.
Yeah. Can it be saved, though? Is it a possibility?
You know, look, you never say never. I think that the problem is over a long period of time, things didn't go as we desired. You know, baseball tonight went away. We thought, you know, that was, you know, sort of cut back on promotion in order to get the last deal done. We actually created around the playoffs because they wanted, you know, playoff baseball. We didn't have anything else to give them. That was very successful. And yet, you know, a year before, it's not like they came to us and said, this isn't working. Instead, you know, we started to get these leaks. We're going to opt out. We're going to opt out. We're going to opt out. And, you know, that's what happened. I mean, it is what it is. The good news is the incoming in terms of interest, even in just the 3 years that we really are focused on right now, has been really strong. I think that ideally, from our perspective, if we could move Sunday Night Baseball to broadcast, it would be a real victory for us. But we have interest both from broadcast entities and some of the new media companies.
Well, I was just with Roku Sports. You know, Roku, their head of sports, you know, Joe, just last week at the Sports Pro conference, and that's a relationship that's interesting because Roku is on every television, and you get the discoverability right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the we did the Roku deal.
Yeah.
for the simple reason that there was a reach there that we thought was valuable to us just in terms of getting to more people. As the cable universes shrink, you got to think about reach. And broadcast one avenue, but entities like Roku's another one.
Yeah. Yeah, they're on the horizon. I mean, can we maybe envision your own MLB Fast channel across platforms as well?
You can. And, you know, look, I think that it's important in an environment that's changing as rapidly as our media space is to experiment.
Yeah.
Experiment both in terms of who are these people and, you know, is it somebody we'd like to do business with over the long haul? But also, you know, you put games out there, you get a feel for exactly what you might expect in terms of return from that kind of a relationship.
Yeah. Speaking of experimenting, I called just before my good friend Rob Parker, MLBBro.com, and I said, Rob, I got the commissioner coming up. What would you ask him? And he didn't get to it, but he was really, he said I would credit him for the rule changes. And I said, man, Rob, that's really strange coming from you because you were hard. And he's a baseball aficionado. This man is a historian with baseball. But he said, man, I got to give it to him. Those rule changes really helped. The games are quicker. He loves the pitch clock. Are you starting to get all that, the criticism that you were getting before? Are you starting to get those people to come around and say, hey,
we really feel like we're past that wave. You know, we laugh in the office. And, you know, you need to understand the environment you're operating in. No matter what the change is, no matter how big, how small, you're going to have a period of 3 or 4 weeks where traditional people are going to be opposed to the change. I mean, when we went to the change where you didn't have to throw the 4 pitches, I mean, some people acted, you know, like we'd ripped up the Constitution. You know, I mean, but you know, once people see things, and you know, you see that things like the pitch clock improved the pace of the game, improved the action in the game, people start to come around and say, hey, this kind of looks
fun, like
baseball used to look, right? It's not so much you're changing the game, it's you're putting it back to the way it was when a lot of people first fell in love with it.
Yeah, it's fun, man. So I said I feel guilty for not being able to go last year, but I'm going this year.
We're going to get this fixed.
Absolutely. You know, listen, you look at, again, the overall health of baseball, I'm looking at 71 million attendance, right? That's up from 70 million in 2023. Still down from 2027, but trending up. 10 billion in revenue. The last time, man, you was in San Diego talking in 2019, and it's reported 12 billion. That all accurate? That's fair? Sounds right?
Yeah.
So with that said, what's Rob Manfred, if you had to describe, give me one word about the overall health of MLB as we sit here in 2025, right? Midway in the decade, what would you say that word is?
I think that the single biggest word is momentum. I think that the business is on an upward trend, that the product we're putting on the field is a better product. More people are coming to stadiums. The demographics have dramatically improved. Our 18 to 34s were up double digits on all the platforms last year. And maybe, you know, most important, and I think it is the long-term indicator of health, our youth participation numbers are way up. If people play as kids, they grow up to be fans.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how I did it, and then watching the movie The Sandlot. And that's how I developed baseball.
You know, that's an interesting space. You know, we were actually talking about this the other day. There hasn't been a great baseball movie in a few years.
No.
We're due.
Yeah,
you know,
we are, but don't remake The Sandlot. Keep it a classic because the kids can still access it.
Right.
But I mean, that's when I think about that movie, it's like, man, that's when I kind of fell in love with baseball. And then obviously back in Philly where I grew up, I saw hard-hitting Mark Whitten.
Right.
And then, you know, the Ryan Howards, Jimmy Rollins of the world. I mean, I fell in love with it at that point. And
you do know Jimmy and Ryan were both with us in Tokyo.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They were unbelievable.
Yeah.
They are quite a pair.
Well, Jimmy's the man,
he's
man.
the best.
Absolutely, he's the man.
Absolutely the best. Yeah.
What's it like being commissioner of a major sports league like MLB? Like, I mean, do you have to rip your hair out sometimes because you got to go through the PR stuff, and then you got the players union, and then you have just all the other stuff that goes with it. What is that like for you?
Look, you know, I love the job. You know, when I started, I thought I would go 10 years, and I've done that now, and, you know, I thought it'd be done.
Yeah.
I agreed to stay on because I really do love the job. I mean, look, you get the PR, you learn to manage it. You know, when people say, I don't care, that's actually not true. You know, you do care, but you learn to manage the emotion that's associated with it. In terms of owners, you know, obviously there's different guys that you have to manage more carefully, but on balance, I have a great group of owners. They're very united. They've been tremendously supportive of the things that I've tried to do. And you know, the cherry on top of it all is you get to be associated with the greatest game in the world. I mean, why not? It's a great gig.
Yeah, it is. But there's positive surprises and there are negative surprises, right?
It's
What's
true.
the biggest positive surprise about being commissioned?
I think the biggest positive is how many people are actually not vocal but positive about what the commissioner's office is doing and trying to do. There's a real silent, you know, you hear the loud voices. There's a huge majority of people that are supportive of the kind of things that we've tried to do on a variety of fronts. And that was surprising to me because you get focused on the loud voices.
Yeah. And the negative surprise?
The negative surprise is how passionate some of the loud voices are. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it's a game. Right? It's a game. But you know, I think that passion, while it can be negative in terms of, you know, what people say and do, it's also indicative of a tie to the sport that's really deep and meaningful to those people, and you have to keep that in the back of your mind while you're dealing with them.
Well, what's your day-to-day? Do you get up, you have a cup of coffee, you look at Forbes.com, obviously, check the NASDAQ index, then what?
Well, I'm a big workout guy. I work out every morning.
Walking?
No, I do a combination of I'm a big Peloton guy. Became a Peloton person during during the pandemic, but a combination of that and weights. I try to do that every day. I find it clears my head. I have a great curated news feed that I try to read before I go out in the morning. That I think, you know, important to get beyond baseball and sports, you know, have a little bigger vision of what's going on in the world. So I try to do those things before I go to the office, because once I go to the office, it's kind of all baseball all the time.
Steve Ballmer has told me that every morning he gets up, he usually, one of the things he does is, I don't know if he still does it, but he checked Twitter and now it's X app. And I said, why do you do that? He says, because it gives him an indication on what's on the top of people's minds, because they go right there and they want to. And I found that to be very interesting, right? What is the first news source you check?
Yeah, I do look. I have a service that collects clips about baseball. I always go through those in the morning. I think it's important to know what's on people's mind. But I agree with Steve. You know, like I have a fairly transparent email. I get a lot of direct communication with fans, and you know, sometimes people say, why do you want all that in your inbox? You know, it just kind of gives you a feel for what's out there real time, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, keeping your ear and your eyes to the ground. Most definitely, most definitely. Listen, take me back to Saturday, August 10th, 1968. And you grew up in New York, right? And start time 2:50. Yankee Stadium, Yankees Twins. It was you and your dad. And you're in that stadium. What is the smell like? What does it feel like? And because that was your first game, if I'm not mistaken, and that's the last game that Mickey Mantle, your favorite player, hit 2 home runs, right?
One from each side.
One from each. What is that feeling like there?
Well, you know, it was a huge thing in my family. It was actually, I have a younger brother, older sister, and my mom and dad took the 3 of us down. I mean, it was like a huge family trip to drive from upstate New York to go to this game. And the thing I remember the most, I remember walking up into the stadium before we even got to our seats, and I found the visual of the field and Yankee Stadium to just be breathtaking. I mean, it was absolutely unbelievable. You know, I'd never seen a stadium that large in person, but the combination of the size and just the green grass and the dirt, and it looked so pristine, left a real impression. I remember my dad giving my brother and I a hard time about how many hot dogs we tried to eat. If they really cost you 30 minutes for every one you ate, we shaved some ears off that day. But it was a great day. It was actually Old Timers Day, so we saw the Old Timers game before, and then the game against the Twins. It was just an unbelievable experience.
Did you like when we were in there? Because I know, when I'm looking at my 11-year-old, and I know the first time I've been to a baseball game. I was part of the Phillies fan or kids club, and I was sitting up in the nosebleeds at Veteran Stadium, right? And it's just a feeling that you have, like, man, I'm here. Yeah, like this is it. This is real.
You know, you put your finger on something that I think is really important and a differentiator for us as compared to some other sports. Our live product,
better than anything in the world,
is just so good. And you know, you talk about change, and this, it doesn't have a lot to do with what happens in the commissioner's office. It's really been at the club level. But the clubs have been tremendously responsive in terms of updating the stadium experience to try to appeal to younger fans. The seating optionality, the stand-up bars, all those developments that have helped make our live audience. Our average age of ticket buyers is down 6 years in the last 5, which is, when you're talking about 70 million tickets, that's a huge move. And you see at places like Philly in the postseason, you walk around in the upper deck, it's young people.
Absolutely.
That's who's up there.
Yeah. And standing room only in some of them too.
Exactly. And I do think that the focus on the live product really important for us.
So as you get home from that game, right, you see Mickey Mantle hit 2 home runs. Is in your head, are you thinking, I want to be MLB commissioner one day, or a player? I know you guys spent your years as a lawyer, but where do you want to be at that point? Mickey Mantle?
Actually, all I was thinking about, we went back the next day.
Oh, okay, so you got 2 games.
Yeah, I did get 2 games.
Wow.
But no, I really did not. Even when I came to work in the commissioner's office, I was not thinking about being the commissioner of baseball. I actually think that probably helped me because I was focused on what I was trying to do. I owe Commissioner Seelig a debt in this regard. As time went on, he gave me non-labor projects that helped broaden my experience and was really important in terms of me ultimately becoming commissioner. I don't know what he had in mind. Honestly, we've never talked about it, but he did broaden my experience in a way that was really important for me.
Well, it goes back to, listen to an interview you did years ago, something that your dad told you when you first took the job, which was pay attention to this job you have, right? Do the best you can to the job you have, and the next job will take care of itself. Did you use that philosophy along the way?
I do think it was a really important piece of advice, particularly when you're young and you're anxious to
get to the next step.
Yeah, you want to go to the next step. Usually the best way to get the next step is make sure the step you're on, you're doing a good job.
Just do your job, and everything else will take care of itself. So as you're navigating, right, Cornell, and then you go to Harvard, and then you end up in MLB. Was that 1987 around that time, helping them out?
I started outside in 87.
87, and then you get to the league in 1998. Right. Working in labor operations, finance, and then COO. But I saw an interesting stat, and I wanted to bring it up to you, right? And that is in 1998. The average MLB team was worth $194 million. Today, that number is about $2+ billion. Now, that was in 1998 when you first got your full-time job. Here you are as commissioner, and these teams are worth an average $2 billion. Is that like mind-blowing to you, or did you always see this coming?
Yeah, no, I think that the growth in franchise values in all sports, not just ours, has been absolutely phenomenal. And I think in a lot of ways, not foreseeable. I remember, when the Dodgers bankruptcy happened and it was for sale, people started talking about numbers, and it ultimately sold for over $2 billion. Even at that time, I'm thinking, wow, that's some move. It's been a great asset class.
Yeah, it has. I mean, listen, and you speaking of that, I was just with Goldman Sachs' Dave Dossi.
Yeah,
and
I'm a big fan of Dave.
I went back to a 2019 interview, and this is what you said, quoting, "Understanding the substance of what's at issue is thinking about the interests of the other side and how you can address those interests in a way that you can get to an agreement," right? And you were explaining how preparation is big when it comes down to negotiation because you're able to adjust on the fly when you're in that. Is that key to how Rob Manfred negotiates still in 2025, being much prepared?
Yeah, I think the single biggest mistake that people make in negotiations is that they focus on what they need exclusively.
Yeah.
And creative solutions that can be win-win. And I do believe there are, some people don't believe there's such a thing as a win-win solution. I do. And I think the opportunity to develop those kind of solutions is always grounded in not only understanding what you need to get, but trying to understand what the other guy really needs out of the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you want to see that? I mean, you get entrepreneurs approaching MLB all the time trying to do business, right? Is that what you want to see in those pitch decks, that they did the preparation to understand what they can bring to your league? Yeah,
I think in terms of people pitching us for business, the single biggest differentiator is preparation and knowledge about our side of the table as opposed to just their side of the table.
Yeah. Is there anything else specifically that you look for in a deal from an entrepreneur?
Well, I think that I look for people who are passionate about what it is they're trying to sell us on. I think it's very hard to be successful if you don't believe in the business you're in. And I look for people who seem to really believe in themselves, believe in the business, believe in the product that they have. And those people usually turn out to be the best partners.
Yeah. What's the one trait that you use to navigate your role from getting to, again, 1998, getting to the door and then getting up the ladder to commissioner? Again, you probably wasn't aiming for it, taking it step by step, but what's the one trait outside of the preparation? I know you said you were a huge data analytics guy, the numbers, because you can't change people's thinking, so you might as well just present them with numbers. But what is that one trait that really helped you along the way?
Yeah, I think that, I use the phrase technical competence. I think it's really important, particularly for leaders, to have an in-depth competence in the various areas that they're trying to lead. You need to, it's not good enough to have a great CFO and rely on him, okay? You're not going to get the most from that person unless you understand in detail the finances of the organization. I think it is, it's a constant learning process in order to stay up to speed, to stay current, but I think that technical competence is really important.
I like that, technical competence. Another thing that really stood out to me, again, it gets back to what you were saying about momentum, right? Momentum is a process, a momentum to the process. You need momentum to get a deal. The tricky thing is managing the momentum so you're not chasing a deal, right? I love that quote, and I wanted you to kind of explain that to, again, entrepreneurs who may watch the show, managing the momentum so you're not chasing it, but using it effectively. Elaborate on that.
Well, I think, let's start with the momentum piece. Good communication and dialogue across a negotiating table, if you're actually communicating with each other, it creates flexibility, right? The idea it's possible to get there motivates people maybe to take a little chance and do a little more than they're wanting to do. Here's the problem. You can get carried away with that emotion, and it is emotional, just like any other emotion, and you can start to get into a mode where, oh, I have to have it, and I'm so close, and it's, just two more things I have to give up. That's the back and forth that you have to manage.
Yeah, most definitely. I love that quote, though. I had to bring it up there. And I hate always quoting all these interviews that I watched over the last, because my secret now.
The other thing I would say about that, pace. Is really important.
Why is that important?
Well, I think that if you move too slow, you lose your momentum. But if momentum starts to take over, you move fast, and that's when you make mistakes. You realize after the fact, oh my God, I thought it was worth $2 and it was really worth $102.
Yeah. So it's a combination of preparation,
right,
momentum, pace, and using analytical data to
make sure that you're checking. If you have that great analytical base, and I've been really, the support people that I've had around me in big deals, particularly the labor deals, outstanding people, and they can be a great check on getting going too fast, going back to them and saying, hey, I'm thinking this is worth this, and they tell you, no, it's really worth that. That's what you want to be doing.
Yeah, most definitely. Listen, Matt and Pat, you're two calm guys, very good guys for me. They know this is a very key issue for me, which is black players in MLB. I always talk about it. Down from 1991. I'm looking at 18% in 1991. Again, at the time when I was growing up, falling in love with baseball, you see so many players, which is why I fell in love with it, and just 6.3 today. I had a very good talk with a good friend of mine, Michael Lee of the Washington Post, and he reminded me of there are improvements being made, right? You have the programs, the draft, up-and-coming players, right? Justin Crawford, Cam Collier, Hunter Green.
Right.
But there still needs to be progress to kind of get it back up. What are you guys looking, what are you doing to kind of make sure that trend is still going back up?
If I had to give you one word, it would be investment.
Investment.
You need to invest, particularly in playing opportunities in communities where they don't exist, in order to attract more people out of those underserved communities. We have been doing that since the day I started. Our commitment to it is stronger today than ever. I think that it has shown return already in terms of the makeup of the top of our draft. I think 20% of the top draft choices the last 5 years have been people of color, which is important to us. And now we need to make sure the next step is making sure those people come through our minor league system and actually develop into the kind of major league players that we hope they become. So we're trying to, obviously continue to spend where we're spending, but, focus particularly on the minor league process, get those people through the minor leagues sooner, quicker, and make sure that they have every opportunity to excel at the major league level.
When you hear the line, and I've heard it before, and understand both sides over the years, that baseball doesn't do enough to promote its players. It's players is black. And I say, well, in talking to Mookie Betts, it's two-sided, right? He obviously came out and said, listen, we also as players need to be there. We need to show up to certain communities. And it's hard to get players who play 162 games out to do stuff. They're superstitious. It's hard. I mean, I get it. It's both sides. But where can you find compromise so that way you can start
to be smart about managing their schedule. So, like, we have a great social media program that we set up for players that it makes it easy for them to be more active on social media. They can just grab clips. We work with a vendor, Greenfly, I think his name is Sean Green's company. And when you have programs like that that make it easy for players to engage, you get results. Our social activity has gone crazy since we started this program, and providing support and opportunity for players to do it in an easy way is absolutely crucial. Secondly, it's about relationships. Mookie's a great example. We had a little relationship with him. He wanted to, when they were out of the postseason a couple of years ago, he wanted to do some work with Fox, which we helped arrange, and then he kind of paid back by becoming the spokesman for our award show in Las Vegas. And those sort of relationships are really important in terms of driving the marketing of players. But I will tell you, everything we do from a marketing perspective, if you look back over the last 10 years, there's one thing in common about that marketing, and it's all about players.
Yeah. Over the last few days, Rob, I've been thinking a lot about Jimmy Lee Solomon, God bless his life. And I wrote an article on Jimmy Lee years ago, and he was so enthusiastic about the academy that he had opened up, the baseball academy in Compton. And as I'm thinking about him, it's Hunter Green, learned to play baseball at that particular academy. And then you're thinking about somebody today reminded me of Wendell Smith, 1947, right? The first black writer, right? As have a card for Baseball Writers of America. So to see the headline that you guys took diversity out off the website and all of the stuff that's going on there, I understand DEI is under attack, but why remove that word, the diversity word, especially being as though that MLB is the most diverse league of all the professional sports, by far, right? The most diverse league, and you look at the history there. Jackie Robinson Day's coming up. Why remove that word? What was the thinking behind that decision?
Well, I am, if nothing else, pragmatic. I have paid very close attention to what's going on in Washington. The EEOC issued some guidance just last week that was pretty pointed about, certain red flag issues with respect to programs. Our view was that we should go through our programs, do the very best we could to make sure that we would not be a target. And if we avoid being a target, we can continue with those programs to do all the good work we've done over a series of years, and avoid the situation where you become a target and the programs get blown up altogether. Yeah. I just don't. I was managing my downside, maybe is the best way to say it. I think it's important to say, and I will say it again, our values have not changed. We're going to continue to pursue those values, but we are cognizant of what the legal environment is, and we're going to tailor our programs so that they survive.
Yeah. So the league is still committed to making sure that those programs that develop are long-standing.
Absolutely, and they may need to be a little broader in scope than they used to be, but that's fine too. I mean, there's nothing wrong with developing a lot of good people.
Yeah, another question I got from someone when I asked about this particular interview, and he said, does Jackie Robinson Day change at all with the fact that the diversity issue, and then obviously the government removing Jackie Robinson's history, replacing it back, but does that change at all for MLB?
I think Jackie Robinson transcends any debate that's going on in today's society about issues surrounding DEI. I mean, what Jackie Robinson stands for was moving us past an overt kind of segregation that I don't believe anybody actually supports today. And he's a symbol of that, and he's an important part of our history, and we will continue to celebrate him as we always have.
Yeah. Have you heard from any players, whether it be Black, CeCe Sabathia, I know you're very close with him, Jackie Robinson's family, about that diversity issue?
No, I have not. I mean, CeCe and I have talked about it, but I haven't heard from the Robinson family. I think this is a situation in which, because things are changing, you have to make tough choices about managing upside and downside. And I think, if you really think through and listen to why we did what we did, I would summarize it with the notion that we want to continue to make progress and make sure that we don't become a target by being too overtly on the wrong side of the lines that the EEOC is drawing right now.
Absolutely. Get you out of here on some fun stuff, man. Look ahead, close. I always started with the $1 million question, right? The $1 million question. I know you got it, Rob, so you can't lie. Your first $1 million. I think I know how you made it, right? Through lawyering and MLB. Yeah. How did you spend it?
That's interesting. The only time I've actually, other than houses, written a check for $1 million, it was a charitable donation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So your first $1 million was a charitable donation? Yeah. That is phenomenal. So you wouldn't change anything about that?
No. I mean, I think it's important to try to give back to, particularly institutions that were significant in your development or stand for things that are important in terms of your own value system.
Yeah, 100%. Baseball outlook stuff, right? You do have some stadium issues going on in Tampa. I believe Oakland is getting theirs resolved with the expansion. What's the latest there? I know there are ambitions of expanding eventually to 32, but you've made it clear on record nothing is happening until these stadium issues are resolved.
Yeah, look, I think I consider the A's resolved.
Yeah, that's.
I really do. They're going to go in the ground. They're going to open in 28 in Las Vegas. I think they're going to be wildly successful.
I've been told by stadium people to not believe it until the actual roof is on. That's the rule, though. That's what they say.
Yeah. Look, there's always timing issues, but they're going to Vegas, and I think there's a lot of excitement surrounding the potential for baseball in Las Vegas. Tampa's a difficult situation. If you told me, or you asked me 6 months ago, I thought they were resolved, and then a hurricane blows the roof off, the deal for the new stadium falls apart. Our focus right now is getting the Trop fixed so that we have a major league facility to play in next year. And then we're going to have to regroup with Mr. Sternberg and figure out what his view is for the franchise longer term. I remain of the view that 32 is the right number for us, and there are cities, a number of them, that have made significant pledges in terms of governmental support to build stadiums and whatnot that want Major League Baseball, and we should try to meet that demand.
Yeah, two of them, Nashville's an up-and-coming city, right? And a place that I hold near and dear to my heart, because I lived there, I covered the Blazers, is Portland. I know they have been really, really adamant about trying to get this thing. Is it a possibility? Is it real that that community, are they in the running, or should they just stop?
Yeah, look, I think that if we expand, we need a Western time zone team, just to balance out the divisions.
Yeah.
And I think in the Western time zone, Portland's a real competitor.
Yeah, I love Portland, I'm telling you. Well, it isn't rain here in the summertime either, so you're safe, I'm telling you. A quote, again, 2024, this is what you said in February from Tampa, Florida. You can only have so much fun in one lifetime. I've been open with the owners about the fact that this is going to be my last term, right? You have 4 years left on your deal. Is it still, you're still done after this one?
Yeah, I am. I think that It's a combination of two things. First of all, I'll be 70 at the end.
That's still young though, Rob.
It is, but I've had a job since was 14, and I have some other things I'd like to do in my life. But secondly, I think that an institution benefits from a fresh look in the 10 to 15 year range. You got 10 or 15 years, you put your mark on the institution. It's time to bring somebody in with a new agenda and let them try to move the institution forward.
Yeah, I'm available if you need me.
Okay,
right?
I got you.
But right now, your advice to the next commissioner coming in, like as we sit today in 2025, what will be your advice to the next commissioner coming in?
Fasten your seatbelt.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Also, man, all right, listen, again, getting back to the media rights thing, is it possible we see MLB, Netflix? I mean,
there's a lot of the new media companies have interest in baseball. If you think about it, if you're a streaming service, maybe the biggest challenge, right, is providing fresh content all the time. And my number for them is 2,430. That's how many games we got every year.
Absolutely.
Brand new.
Absolutely. So that means get the bag out. You're about to pay some money. If you look around the world, right, and you had to pick one country where Rob Manfred, not the commissioner of the MLB, but Rob Manfred would say, I'm going to invest some money over there, what country would it be?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I honestly, going back to something I said earlier, I think it might be India.
India.
It's just the sheer volume of people suggests to me that there's going to be upside there. You read so much now about population and declining populations in certain countries. Don't have that issue, and it does seem like it's a place that it would be ripe for investment.
Yeah, labor agreement coming up 2026. I covered the last one. I am not doing this one, man. That is a walk down the park. I do not want. It is crazy, but a lot in your bag coming up before you leave out of the door, right?
Yeah.
Do you try to get anything struck early so you don't have to avoid the issues? I mean, what is the one concern that you see? Again, preparation.
Yeah.
That right now it could be a problem.
I've always been a go early guy.
Yeah.
I don't believe, particularly, remember our basic agreement, I think it's 465 pages. So trying to do it in a rush is never a great idea. I mean, it's a really complicated agreement. And I hope we can get started on it early, have some real meaningful dialogue about, what the issues are facing the game and how we might make it better for everybody. And I do believe there's a chance to make it better for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that salary or luxury tax thing and the owner spending, that might be an issue.
Yeah, well, look, we have a lot of disparity, particularly on the payroll side. And, when you sell competition, disparity is an issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. Forbes BLK, our leadership platform at Forbes. Can you give me your top 3 books that inspired you to perform your best or motivated you?
Oh, my top 3. Well, I can tell you one for sure. The Agenda Movers.
The Agenda Movers. Who's that by?
Samuel Bacharach. He's actually a professor of mine at Cornell. Great kind of practical look at leadership. It's not a vision, charisma book. It's more how do you convince people that your agenda is the one that they should follow?
Yeah.
There's a real overlay of, knowledge about your business and political skills that, actually can be a crossover book, business to politics.
Yeah, Agenda Movers.
Yeah, the Agenda Movers.
Man,
He's written a whole series of books. He's an interesting guy and kind of a unique take on the topic of leadership. I paid a lot of attention to President Bush's book. I knew President Bush when he was the owner of the Rangers, and I think his kind of journey through highs and lows is one that contains some interesting insights into managing the ups and downs of a job like this where the public's kind of voting on you every day with their feet.
Absolutely.
Really interesting.
Nice. Get you out of here on this. My favorite book, business book, Good to Great, Jim Collins. What's the difference between a good commissioner and a great one? You've been around some.
Yeah, I think the difference between a good commissioner and a great commissioner is the willingness to undertake change. I think that, riding the status quo, because sports has a lot of, strong status quo, stay with me, we don't need to change anything sentiment in it. I think the problem with that is the world leaves you behind when you just, ride the status quo. You got to be willing to take a chance. Every change that you undertake, we talked about the clock before. I mean, I'll tell you the truth. We studied it, used it in the minor leagues. I had all sorts of data and all sorts of smart people telling me it was all going to be fine. And, we kind of got to the day before the season, and literally I had this panic. Oh my God, what's going to happen if this goes badly?
You're going to get a lot of emails and phone calls.
Yeah, it's a big risk, and it's more than emails and phone call though. If something, particularly when you do something that's on the field, it's ugly. It can be ugly, and that's a huge risk. It takes guts to figure out what the change is, work through the process to the point that you're comfortable that the change you're proposing is actually going to make it better. Do some research about what your fans think so that you know where they are, and make sure that what you think is a good change, they think is a good change. It's a real process, but I do think it's important in terms of currency, even in something like sports where people are really attached to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob, listen, I appreciate the insight, the dialogue, the transparency, man. This is a very, always good to catch up with you. We can't be doing this every 5 years, though. We got to make it like at least every 2 or something. I know you're busy, but you're on your way out. I got to get you at least one more time.
You got to get my man Pat to be a little more responsive.
Apparently I have friends now. So,
there you go.
Those calls. I appreciate it. Rob Manfred here at the NASDAQ, the Enterprise Zone. Thank you for watching.